like to sleep in a dark room. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, so do I. Everybody likes to sleep in a dark room. No, I like to sleep in a dark, dark room. I want to shut those curtains. I want to close the blinds. I want no night lights in my room. I want that room to be as dark as it can be, and I want it to be as cold as it can be. How many of you like to sleep in a cold room? I have so many blankets on me, you can't even tell there's a human being underneath of those blankets. I don't want one blanket or two blankets. I want at least 3 blankets over top of me. I like to sleep in a dark room. I like to sleep in a cold room. I get a better sleep when it's dark. I get a better sleep when it's cold. I'm under the blankets. You can just barely see me, right? My head sticking out. I enjoy sleeping in a dark, cold room. But I wouldn't want to live in the dark. I wouldn't want to live my life in the dark. You know, right now we're in that season where the days are shortened. I looked online today, and sunset today is 5:14 p.m. That should be a crime. That shouldn't even be legal. 5:14 p.m. is sunset. I don't like these shortened days. I like to, have sunlight 6:30, 7:30, 8:30. 9 o'clock, whatever, long days. I don't want to live in the darkness. I like to sleep in the darkness, but I don't want to live in the darkness. I want to live in the light. Do you know without light, there's no life? They're connected. If the sun were to no longer shine, if the sun were to cease to exist, there would be no life on planet Earth. Be no vegetation, no food to eat. It would be so cold upon planet Earth that no human being, no life could exist upon planet Earth without the sun. Life and light go together. There is no life without light. And what I want to talk to you today is how Jesus is the light of the world. He's the light. This is the dark world that we live in. But Jesus Christ is the light. Now we're going to be today in John chapter 1, verses 1 through 18. And throughout this month, we're going to be reading this passage. We're going to be thinking about this passage. We're going to be teaching on this passage, different verses from this passage week by week. We're going to read the entire passage each week so this could really get into your heart and into your life. John chapter 1, let me begin with verse 1. John writes, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. All things were created through him, and apart from him, not one thing was created that has been created. In him was life, and that life was the light of men. That light shines in the darkness, and yet the darkness did not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify about the light so that all might believe through him. He was not the light, but he came to testify about the light. The true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world was created through him, and yet the world did not recognize him. He came to his own, and his own people did not receive him. But to all who did receive him, he gave them the right or the power to be children of God, to those who believe in his name, who were born not of natural descent or of the will of the flesh or of the will of man, but of God. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. We observed his glory, the glory as the one and only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. John testified concerning him and exclaimed, 'This was the one of whom I said, the one coming after me ranks ahead of me, because he existed before me. Indeed, we have all received grace upon grace from his fullness, for the law was given through Moses, grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has ever seen God, the one and only Son, who is himself God and is at the Father's side. He has revealed him. I don't know if you noticed as I was reading through that passage, hopefully because of my introduction, but in this passage it emphasizes how Jesus Christ is the light. In verse 4, in verse 5, again in verse 9, Jesus Christ is the light. And you see it in the New Testament. You see it in the Gospels. There's a lot of different analogies that are used to describe Jesus, to describe his person, to describe the salvation that he has brought to us. And one of the principal ones that you find in the New Testament is Jesus is the light. Jesus is the light of the world. And that's what I want to talk to you today about. I want to talk to you about the light of Jesus Christ. And I want to emphasize three things about Jesus being the light. And the first is Jesus Christ is the true light. A lot out there claiming to be the light, claiming to show the light, but Jesus Christ is the true light. Verse 9, it says, the true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. It's not just that Jesus brings the light. It's not that Jesus reflects the light. He himself is the light. How many times in the gospel does Jesus say, I am? I am the light of the world. Not just that he brings the light or he reflects the light. He himself is the light. He was prophesied in the Old Testament. In Isaiah chapter 9, verse 2, it says, the people walking in darkness have seen a great light. A light has dawned on those living in the land of darkness. You see, Jesus is a great light, and Jesus is the true light. John chapter 12, verse 46, he says, I have come as light into the world so that everyone who believes in me would not remain in darkness. Do you realize this is a dark world in which we live? It was a dark world when Jesus came into it. The world that Jesus Christ entered was a dark world. But I want you to know, even today, here in America and countries around the world, this is still a dark world. It's a dark world spiritually. There's a lot of religious confusion out there. There's a lot of spiritual confusion out there. And if you were to have a conversation with someone about spirituality, about religion, about God, you're going to get a lot of different ideas. It's a dark world spiritually. There are people out there that believe there are many gods. There are. There are religions out there that teach that there are many gods, multiple gods, even some that would say to you that there are hundreds and hundreds of gods out there. There are others that would say, no, there's only one God, but maybe it's not the true God. It's not the God of the Bible. It's the God of their imagination. It's the God of their religion. It's the God of their upbringing, but it's not the God of the Bible. Others out there would just say, there is no God. I don't know how many true atheists there actually are, but there are those who would say there is no God. Do you remember Friedrich Nietzsche, that German philosopher? He was the one who claimed God is dead. Many decades ago, that's what he said. That's what he was famous for saying. He said, God is dead. There's no reason to believe in God anymore. There's no reason to live like there is a God. And you know what he decided to do? Friedrich Nietzsche decided to live like there was no God. And the last 11 years of his life, he spent those in insane asylums. Yes, in insane asylums, the last 11 years of his life. Because if you try to live in this world as if there is no God, without God, there's no meaning. Without God, there's no morality. Without God, there's no purpose. It all comes from God. And if you say there is no God, then we're making it all up ourselves. And I'll tell you, that can drive you crazy. It's a dark world spiritually. It's also a dark world morally. Think about all the moral darkness in the world. Greed, materialism, racism, human trafficking, sensuality. The list goes on and on and on. My brother works at a prison in Florida. He's worked there for many years. And he's told me more than once, he said, you do not believe how evil some people are. He said, you wouldn't believe how evil some people are. The things that they have done, the things that they will do, it's as if they have no conscience. And let me tell you, all of us could go down that road of evil without the grace of God. You say, no one can become that evil. Oh, yes. The heart of man is evil apart from the grace of God. And all of us could go down that road if we were not checked and cleansed by the Spirit of God and by the grace of God. It's a dark world spiritually. It's a dark world morally. I feel for our children growing up today. Many of you that I'm talking to here today, you grew up in a world where it was very clear what was right and it was very clear what was wrong. And not that everybody lived that way, but it was very, very clear. This is right, this is wrong. We do not live in that world any longer, not even here in America. There's so much moral confusion today. And the things that you grew up knowing that's wrong and knowing that this is right, it's been turned up on its head. And there's so much moral confusion. But Jesus enters as the light of the world. And it's the true Jesus that's the true light. We're not talking about any Jesus. You know, in some circles, Jesus is popular. The church may not be as popular, but Jesus is more popular. But are we talking about the true Jesus? I'm saying Jesus Christ is the true light, but I'm telling you it's the true Jesus who's the true light. It's not the Jesus you come up with. It's not the Jesus that you want him to be. It's the Jesus as we find presented in the Gospels. And here in John chapter 1, what do we learn? We learn that this true Jesus is simultaneously God and man. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, capital G. Not the Word was a God, the Word was God. And then you skip down to verse 14, it says, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. This Jesus, this true Jesus, who is the true light, simultaneously God and man. He didn't stop being God when he became man. He was at the same time truly God, truly man. And that's the only way he could be the light. If he's going to be the light among us, if he's going to be able to show us the way, he had to come to us where we are. And he entered into our humanity to be able to be the light and to be able to show the way. Thankfully, he's not a blinding light. And also, he's not a borrowed light. You know, the moon is a borrowed light. The moon really has no light of its own. And we talk about moonlight, and you may see the moon. You know, in the evening time, you'll look up and you'll see the moon, maybe quarter moon, maybe full moon. But actually, the moon has no light of its own. The light of the moon is reflected light. It's the light from the sun that gives the light its moon, but it's a borrowed light. Jesus is not a borrowed light. John the Baptist, if I could say it, was a borrowed light. And here in verse 9, he's contrasting Jesus with John. And he said, John's not the light. He came to bear witness to the light, but he himself is not the light. He's a borrowed light. He has no light in and of himself. The light that he had came from Jesus Christ. Jesus is not a borrowed light. He is the light. But also, he's not a blinding light. Do you know the sun is so powerful? Even at the distance that we are at planet Earth, you cannot look directly into the sun for very long or it would blind you. And that's why the true Jesus had to be fully God and fully man. Because if he came in all of his glory, in all of his deity, without being clothed with humanity, he would have been a blinding light, and you would not be able to look upon him. You would not be able to come near him because you would be destroyed in his presence. And so this true light, Jesus Christ, he came in his full deity, yes, he didn't sacrifice his deity to become human. He came in his full deity, but he clothed that deity with humanity. So he wouldn't be a blinding light, so we wouldn't be so overwhelmed by his presence, but we could see him and people could talk to him and follow him and be his followers and believers and worship him without being destroyed because he was not a blinding light. He came clothed in humanity. Now, one day you're going to see him in all of his glory if you're a believer in Jesus Christ. But your body will be transformed so that you can handle that type of light in his presence. Jesus Christ is the true light. Even John the Baptist, all the prophets, all the apostles, they weren't false lights, but they had no light inherent to them. They were borrowed lights that simply reflected the light of Jesus Christ like the moon. But Jesus himself, he doesn't simply bring the light. He doesn't reflect the light. He is the light. He's the light of the world. Well, also, when you think about Jesus Christ, he's a universal light. In verse 9 again, it says, the true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. John chapter 8, verse 12, Jesus spoke to them again. I am the light of the world. Anyone who follows me will never walk in the darkness, but will have the light of life. John chapter 9, verses 4 and 5. We must do the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. John the Baptist could not say that. Moses could not say that. King David could not say that. The Apostle Peter could not say that. The Apostle Paul could not say that. The Archangel Michael could not say that. But let me tell you, Jesus said that. And he's the only one that can say with authenticity, I am the light of the world. Now, we're not talking about universalism, but we are talking about a universal light. I'm not talking about universalism, that everybody's going to be saved, because you have a choice. You have a choice whether or not to receive this light, whether or not to accept this light. Right? I told you at the beginning how I love to sleep in a dark room. And if the kids come in and they turn on the lights, I can say to them, turn those lights off. I want it dark in here, right? If you want to stay in the darkness, you can stay in the darkness. But you can also accept the light. You can be transformed by the light. Jesus has come to bring light and salvation to all, but not all realize this, and certainly not all accept this. Right here in the passage I read, verses 11 and 12. He came to his own, and his own people did not receive him. But to all who did receive him, he gave them the right to be children of God, to those who believe in his name. He came to all, but we have a choice. If you want to stay in the darkness, you can if you want to. But if you want to come into the light, he is the light of the world. You know, there's a famous painting. And this painting is actually entitled, The Light of the World. And it's about Jesus Christ. And he's standing outside in the cold, and he's standing by a door. And you can tell it's the door of a cottage or the door of a house. And there's ivy. It's all grown up on the outside. You can tell this house hasn't been taken care of. You can tell it needs attention. And Jesus is standing out there with a lantern. And there's also a light over his head. And he's knocking at that door. And one of the things you notice about this painting, there is no door handle on the outside. There's no doorknob on the outside. The only doorknob is on the inside. And he's just outside knocking as the light of the world. Overgrown house. What's that a picture of? It's a picture of each and every one of us apart from Jesus Christ. that our life is overgrown and our life hasn't been taken care of. And spiritually speaking, we are separated from God. And he comes as the light of the world, and he's knocking. You know, sometimes a knock can be frustrating. You know, as you're at your house, we just don't expect anyone today to knock on our door, correct? Like these days, I remember growing up, it wasn't too unusual to have a friend knock on the door, or I go up to their house and knock on the door. Actually, I grew up in the neighborhood. I didn't even knock sometimes. You just go right in. You kind of had an open door invitation. You're just neighbors that you knew, kids that you knew. But it wasn't that unusual to have a knock on the door of your house. You know, these days it's unusual, isn't it? You just don't have as many people knock on the door. And it's either someone from a cult or someone to sell you some type of safety or security system in your home, or, you know, you're just like, please, go away. And you're like telling the kids, be quiet. Everybody be quiet. Don't say a word. And they'll knock, and then they're gone. And you know, sometimes we're like that with Jesus. You know, you think about it at your home, you know, you might be watching the ball game, watching a movie, or whatever you're doing, and that knock kind of interrupts what you're doing. You're like, I don't want to go answer the door. I don't want to go talk to this guy. I'm just going to sit here in blessed quietude and wait for them to leave. And sometimes we do that with Jesus. How many Sundays have you been coming here? Week after week, month after month. And he's knocked. He's been knocking through the music. He's been knocking through the preaching. He's been knocking through the friendships that you made in the church. He's been telling you, you need to get baptized. He's been telling you, you need to follow Jesus Christ. And you kind of hear it. And it kind of gets your attention. And once again, you tell everybody around you, be quiet. Nobody say a word. And hopefully he'll leave. You know the interesting thing about Jesus, he'll knock on the door, but he won't knock the door down. And in a way that's wonderful, but in a way it's scary. It's wonderful because he does respect our choices in life and gives you that freedom. It's scary because he allows us to go our own way if we choose. He knocks on the door, but he doesn't knock the door down. And I'll tell you another thing that I found out. Be very careful about this. The longer you resist, maybe the first knock was, I'm not going to respond to the knock. I'm not going to answer the door. No, you know what? He'll come knocking again. This isn't my Sunday. It's not so much his knock gets more silent. It's your ability to hear his knock gets more silent. You know what I'm saying? His knock is the same knock every single time on the door of your heart because he wants to come in and be your Savior. He wants to save you more than you want to be saved. But your ability to hear it can lessen to the point where you are numb and deaf to the voice of God. He's a universal light. He's the light of the world. He's able to save everyone. He died and provided a sacrifice for everyone. He calls everyone, invites everyone, but you have to choose. Let me just say to you, open that door. You'll never regret it. I've never met anyone that says, man, I wish I didn't open the door and let Jesus Christ into my life to be my Lord and Savior. Well, what I have heard many, many times is, why didn't I do it sooner? Why did I wait so long? Open that door. He's the universal light. Well, one last thing let me just share with you. Jesus Christ, yes, he's the true light. Yes, he's a universal light, but he's also an unquenchable light. You can't put this light out. In verse 5, it says, that light shines in the darkness, and yet the darkness did not overcome it. Now, I know some translations say did not comprehend it, and that is a way you could translate that Greek word, but most likely in this context, it's not saying that the darkness did not comprehend the light. It's saying the darkness did not overcome the light. The darkness did not extinguish the light. Jesus Christ is an unquenchable light. Light is stronger than darkness. Always has been, always will be. Actually, darkness is simply the absence of light. That's all darkness is. It's not like darkness has an entity of itself. Darkness is simply the absence of light. And the only thing that can remove darkness, the only thing, is light. And once light enters, the darkness has to flee. No matter how dark it is. And it doesn't take a big light. If you've ever been in Mammoth Cave or somewhere where you can't even see your hand in front of your face and someone lights a match or a lighter, all of a sudden you can see in a remarkable way. Jesus Christ is an unquenchable light. Yes, there's a lot of darkness in this world, but it's not a darkness that can overcome Jesus. You can't put him out. You know those birthday candles? We've all seen them before. It's your birthday, you're celebrating someone else's birthday, and you got the trick candles. You light them up, and you're back there giggling because you're just waiting for them to try. And they, why do we do that? Who wants to eat a birthday cake after some little kid goes, you want a piece? Nah, I'll pass this time. I'll pass. But that's what we do. And you just see them, especially children. It's wonderful, isn't it, to see children with those trick candles. Boom, they come back, they look up around, they just keep trying and keep trying. Well, Jesus is not a trick. But like those candles, you can't put him out. Blow as hard as you want. You can't put him out. He's an unquenchable light. Nietzsche said, God is dead. People say religion's outdated. People say, why would anybody believe in Jesus of Nazareth? Some say, well, the Gospels aren't true. And the church keeps marching on. People keep getting saved. Jesus Christ is an unquenchable light. Look at verse 5 again. It says that light, and notice present tense, shines. He was shining when he was on the earth. I want to tell you, he's still shining now. You say, how is he still shining now? Because he's alive. You know, the darkness did everything they could to him. What's the worst thing darkness can do to you? Darkness can put you to death. And yet up from the grave, he arose. He's alive, and he's alive forevermore. He still shines because he's in his resurrected glory. But he also still shines because his gospel is being proclaimed around the world. All around the world. You say, well, no, there are some countries that are shut off from the gospel. I want to tell you the gospel is penetrating places that you don't even realize. The underground church, even in these countries that say it's illegal to preach the gospel is still in there. And the gospel is working and people are getting saved. And also he's still shining because his people are doing his work in the world. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 5, verse 14, speaking to you and me, you are the light of the world. And you might say, well, which is it? In John, Jesus said, I am the light of the world. In Matthew, Jesus speaking to his followers said, you are the light of the world. Well, we're a borrowed light. We're like the moon. The moon has no light of its own. The moon is a reflected light. Jesus is the true light. Jesus is the light in and of himself. Not that he brings light, he is the light. But if Jesus is in you, then you too are the light of the world. Not that it's your light, but you're reflecting his light, and everywhere you go, you're the light. A lot of darkness out there. You are the light. And when we think about Christmas, be the light wherever you go. That Christmas party with your family and there are people there that aren't saved, be the light where you go. Let them know Jesus is in your life. Well, one last thing I want to say to you before we wrap it up. Just an admonition when we think about the darkness. Don't adapt to the darkness, but don't be afraid of the darkness. Don't adapt to the darkness. Don't get used to it. Don't conform your life to it. But on the other hand, don't be afraid of the darkness, because light is always stronger than the darkness. Don't adapt to the darkness. I remember one time, I think it was Graham, but it was one of our children, and we were in the room, and they were lying in the bed with me. They were much younger, and it was dark because I like it dark when I go to bed. And they said, "Daddy, it's really dark in here. There's no night light or anything." And I said to him, "Close your eyes for 10 seconds and open them back up." And they said, "Well, I can see a little bit better." You know, we do that all the time with the darkness. Dark world all around us. We just close our eyes, we open them back up, and we say, "Oh, well, it's not as dark as I thought it was." Verse 33, Jesus said, "I have said these things to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but take heart, I have overcome the world." He is the light of the world. What's the worst thing this spiritually, morally dark world could do to a person? Put them to death. And not just put them to death, but in a brutal, shameful way, crucify them on a Roman cross. And they tried to extinguish the light, and some of them thought they had extinguished the light. But up from the grave he arose, and he's alive. It says he shines. Not that he was just shining back then. He shines. Shining because he's alive, shining because his gospel's being proclaimed, and shining because you are his people. And you are the light of the world. And when you do his work, people see the light of Jesus Christ. So let me say to you today, if you've never answered the call of Christ, and whether you can hear it really loudly or it's getting a little bit lower because of your persistent rejection, it's time to say yes.